So we're going to do some practice problems for this particular lesson. And this lesson is adding expressions. One of the things I want to show you is that when it comes down to actually looking at these problems, when I have the addition, so I'm doing, oops, so I'm adding like terms. So I'm adding these expressions. So in all of these, I'm adding expressions. So when I'm doing that, so I'm adding expressions, one thing that becomes apparent is that when I'm adding, and I don't have a number in front, these parentheses are really not necessary. Okay. And so, especially because there's no number being multiplied. Now, there will be some where the number's being multiplied. And then that's going to be the case. But really, we could look at these problems as simply some of these problems in the most basic form as, without the parentheses. And then when you look at that, these are the same type of problems we've been doing with simplifying expressions. So then what we will do here, so let's go back to that color and change this. So what we're going to be looking for then are those like terms. So when we're looking at that, we have these here that are like. And then when we look here, in this problem, we have constants. So these constants are like. Okay. And so we have the p's that are like, and we have the constants that are like. Now, one thing that we could do here is we could rewrite this problem so that the variables are together and the constants are together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I don't have to do that, but it is something that I can do. This is the rewrite stage. And a lot of times I physically do something that later will become a mental habit. So it'd be p plus the constants, and -3 plus -7. So that sign that's in front is going to be together with that. So now we're going to go ahead and add those like terms. And what we have to remember is these invisible ones here. So we have to remember that each one of those is like having 1, because if it was 0, they wouldn't even be there. It'd be gone. So because there is a p there, if there's no number, it's implied that it's 1. So we're going to add these like terms. So 1p plus 1p is going to be 2p plus. And then we've got -3 plus -7. And we'll just underscore those twice because they're not the same as the others. So -3 plus -7 is -10. And so I'm going to write -10. Okay. And so that is, you could write -10, or you could write -10. So plus a -10 or -10. Okay. And so, and that's what these problems are about. It's just about working out, adding the p's together, adding the constants together. Okay. Notice I didn't take these here and say, oh, that's -3p. No, I didn't squish those together. I can't, if it's a constant and a variable, I can't add those together. Okay, so that is definitely one thing I don't want to do. Okay, so I rewrote it so the p's were next to each other. I added the p's, constants were next to each other. I added the constants, and then that was my result. So in this next problem, we have okay, so we have 3n and 4, and then we have -1. Oh, I almost made that mistake. You guys almost let me. Okay, you didn't have anything to do with it. Okay, so try that again. I'm going to highlight the n's, and the n in this one is second place here. So I got 3n and -n, and then my constants are -1 and 4. Okay, and so you got to be super careful. So if I go through that step of actually rewriting that, so that the like terms are next to each other. So I would have, let's go ahead and go here. So I'd have 3n and negative n, okay? And then I would have negative 1 plus 4. And so those are the like terms. So now have the invisible 1. There we go. The invisible 1 there. And so we have 3n minus 1n. So that's going to be 2n. Okay, so those n's combined, 3 minus 1 is 2n. So 2n. And then those constants combined, negative 1 plus 4 is just simply going to be plus 3. So 2n plus 3. And that's it. That's the answer, 2n plus 3. Now you might start thinking to yourself, well, I can start kind of figuring this out. You know, I can start mentally. It's kind of doing that right now. So negative 3r and 5r. Oops, that's the wrong kind. So I meant to do highlighter on that. Okay, so negative 3r and 5r. So negative 3r and 5r. Oh, I can just think to myself, well, okay, I can just kind of put those together, and negative 3 plus 5 is 2r. And so mentally, I kind of start doing that. And so I look and I say, oh, look, these are constants. And there I did it again. So look, these are constants. And so I've got plus 8 and minus 1. So plus 8 and negative 1. And so I can think to myself then, plus 8 and negative 1, if I add those together, 8 minus 1 is 7. So plus 7. Okay. And so then what I end up with then is 2r plus 7. Done. That's all we're doing. So with these problems that don't have a number in front, you could start to use kind of some arrows instead of having to rewrite everything and combining those. And where you might start making mistakes though when you're doing that is with signs. So you have to be super careful. Okay, because you can't ignore the signs in front. It's a plus 8 and a negative 1, and it'd be easy to forget about that. All right, number 4 does have a number in front. So what we're looking at here is this 6, and the 6 is in front, and it's 6 times x minus 3. So there is an added step to this one. So we're actually going to have to distribute this one. Okay, and so when I distribute that, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. I'm going to end up with 6x. 6 times x is 6x. And then minus, and then 6 times 3 is 18. And then I have plus. And then I could just bring the rest of that down because it's just plus. There's not a number in front there. And so since there's not a number in front here, then in this case over here, then it's okay. So I don't need to really worry about that. So now once again, I'm going to look at my like terms. And so I can start looking and say, oh, look, 6x and 2x, that's going to be 8x. Okay. And then I can say and look at my constants. My constants are the same, are here. Okay, so negative 18. And it is important that you get that negative part. It is a negative 18 and a negative 9. That's why we do the 2 marks sometimes, because it's easy to forget that negative in front is the sign of the 18. And that negative in front is the sign of the 9. And they're both negative, so negative 18 and negative 9. So I'm going to add that up, and that is going to be 27, and it's going to be negative 27. So I've got negative 27. And so it's 8x minus 27, and that's it. That's the answer. 8x minus 27. Okay, now we're going to do a couple problems here that have some decimals. So I'm going to look at this first one here, and there is no number in front. So we can just bring that 3c plus 2 down. When we get to this next one, though, there is a 4 there. So that 4 is going to have to be multiplied. I have this 1.3c minus 5 4 times. So I'm going to multiply those. I'm going to distribute that, and that's multiplication. So I've got 4 times 13, basically. So I know that's 52, but I had that decimal, so it's going to be 5.2c. Then I got 4 times 5. So 4 times 5, and it's a minus. So 4 times 5 minus 20. So now I just jump right back into that combining like terms mode. So I've got my C's, and I look at the 3C and the 5C and checking out the signs in front before I add them. So I come over here and 3C plus 5.2C, 3 plus 5, 8.2C. So then I've got my constants. And my constants, again, I'm going to look at the signs in front. So it's a plus 2 and a minus 2. Oh, negative 20. Oh, so I got to be careful with that. Plus 2, minus 20. So different signs, so I subtract. So it's going to give me 18. And I did have more negative. 20 was negative, and so it's going to be 8.2c minus 18. And so not any different when I have decimals. Just changes, when I multiply, I'm just going to have a decimal answer. All right, so I'm going to take a look at this next one, and again, seeing some decimals there, okay? And the one here in the front, that's one I'm going to distribute. Now, when I've got decimals and I've got a power of 10, that makes me super happy. The only thing better is multiplying by 0, because then it goes away. So I have 10 times 2.1. Well, powers of 10 just really, they're very useful because they actually move that decimal. So 10 times 2.1 is going to be 21q minus, and then 10 times 2 is going to be 20. And then this next one I can bring down because there's no number in front. So I bring that down. So then I've got my variable terms. So my variable term is going to be 21q and 7.5q. And so I'm going to add those, and they're both positive. So I'm going to add those, and I'm going to get 28. So 28.5q. Okay. And then I've got my constant. So I've got negative 20 and positive 8. And I have to be careful, and that did not change color. Oops. So I have to be super careful. So negative 20 and positive 8. So I have to be careful because that is in negative 20. Different signs, so I am going to subtract. So go over here. Okay, so I'm going to have negative 20 plus 8. So the difference is 12. So I'm going to have 12, but you look at that, and 20 had more, and it's negative, so it's going to be negative 12. So 28.5q minus 12. So two more decimals, one with decimals and one with fractions. And the fraction seems like it's going to be crazy hard, but it's not super hard. So we're going to go ahead and look at this first one. And the first one here doesn't have a number in front. So I'm just going to bring that down, negative 6y minus 2 plus. But then I'm going to go ahead and distribute that 5. Distribute. Okay, so when I get that, I'm adding that. So 5 times 3 is 15 plus, and then I get 5 times 2.5. 5 times 25 is 125, so it's going to be 12.5 y. Okay, and so I'm just multiplying those. 5 times 3, 5 times 2.5. Okay, so then once again, I'm just adding those like terms. So, oh look, got the y's. Have to be careful because I do have signs here, and it's actually, I have to be super careful. So I have negative 6y and a positive 12.5. So I've got to subtract those. So 12 minus 6 is 6. So 12.5 minus 6 is going to be 6.5. So that's going to be 6.5y. Okay. And then I've got these guys. So again, careful with the signs. It's negative 2 plus 15. So 15 minus 2. They're different signs, so I have to subtract. 15 minus 2 is 13. And it's going to be positive because 15 was so much bigger and it had positives. And that's it. 6.5y plus 13. All right, now these next ones make it a little bit trickier because, we've got these fractions. But if you can kind of get a sense of what a fraction is, and if you can read it out loud and say, okay, I've got half. All right, what does that mean? I've got half of what? Well, I've got half of 6. Oh, what's half of 6? Oh, that's kind of easy. That's 3x minus, and I've got half of 10. Oh, what's half of 10? Oh, that's easy too. That's 5. How do I do that? Half is just dividing by 2. So I just divide those by 2. So then when I think about it here, then what's a third of 6? Oh, a third is just dividing by 3. So what's a third of 6? 6 divided by 3 is 2. Plus, and then what is a third of 9? Oh, 9 divided by 3. That's 3. A third of 9 is 3. So that's 3x. And so it actually ends up being, in the end, really not a really complicated problem when it comes to this step. Okay, so I'm going to look at 3x and 3x. Oh, that's just 6x. And then I've got negative 5 plus 2. And you have to be careful on this one because it is a negative 5 plus 2. You can get excited and see 5 plus 2 is 7. Woo, but forget this, a negative there and a positive here. So it's different signs, so subtract. That's 3. And the 5 was bigger and it was negative, so it's going to be negative 3. Okay, and so that's how to do these problems. Let's look at this next problem. So 2 more decimals, one with decimals and one with fractions. And the fraction seems like it's going to be crazy hard, but it's not super hard. So we're going to go ahead and look at this first one. And the first one here doesn't have a number in front. So I'm just going to bring that down, negative 6y minus 2 plus. But then I'm going to go ahead and distribute that 5. Distribute. Okay, so when I get that, I'm adding that. So 5 times 3 is 15 plus, and then I get 5 times 2.5. 5 times 25 is 125, so it's going to be 12.5 y. Okay, and so I'm just multiplying those. 5 times 3, 5 times 2.5. Okay, so then once again, I'm just adding those like terms. So, oh look, got the y's. Have to be careful because I do have signs here, and it's actually, I have to be super careful. So I have negative 6y and a positive 12.5. So I've got to subtract those. So 12 minus 6 is 6. So 12.5 minus 6 is going to be 6.5. So that's going to be 6.5y. Okay. And then I've got these guys. So again, careful with the signs. It's negative 2 plus 15. So 15 minus 2. They're different signs, so I have to subtract. 15 minus 2 is 13. And it's going to be positive because 15 was so much bigger and it had positives. And that's it. 6.5y plus 13. All right, now these next ones make it a little bit trickier because, we've got these fractions. But if you can kind of get a sense of what a fraction is, and if you can read it out loud and say, okay, I've got half. All right, what does that mean? I've got half of what? Well, I've got half of 6. Oh, what's half of 6? Oh, that's kind of easy. That's 3x minus, and I've got half of 10. Oh, what's half of 10? Oh, that's easy too. That's 5. how do I do that? Half is just dividing by 2. So I just divide those by 2. So then when I think about it here, then what's a third of 6? Oh, a third is just dividing by 3. So what's a third of 6? 6 divided by 3 is 2 plus. And then what is a third of 9? Oh, 9 divided by 3. That's 3. A third of 9 is 3. So that's 3x. And so it actually ends up being, in the end, really not a really complicated problem when it comes to this step. Okay, so I'm going to look at 3x and 3x. Oh, that's just 6x. And then I've got negative 5 plus 2. And you have to be careful on this one because it is a negative 5 plus 2. You can get excited and see 5 plus 2 is 7. Woo, but forget this, a negative there and a positive here. So it's different signs, so subtract. That's 3. And the 5 was bigger and it was negative, so it's going to be negative 3. Okay, and so that's how to do these problems. Let's look at this next problem. So now we have a word problem, and this word problem relates some of this to a real world problem. Okay, and you've got 2 questions being asked here, so we're going to address the first one. So it says, after a week of rain, tadpoles appeared in your pond. After T minutes, you have 7T plus 5 tadpoles, and your friend has 8T minus 3 tadpoles. A, write an expression that represents the number of tadpoles you and your friend caught together. Okay, so together implies then that we're going to add these. So now I'm assuming we're going to write this expression in simplest form. So we're going to go ahead and start with writing this down. If it's together, we're going to add 7T plus 5 plus 8T minus 3. And so we are writing that as the addition problem. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started here and we're going to write it in simplest form. So we're going to add these like terms. There's no number up front, so we can just add these like terms. 7T plus 8T equals 15T. Okay, so then we can add the constants. So 5 minus 3. Now that is a negative 3, so again we have to be careful of those signs. So plus 5 minus 3. And so they're different signs, so I subtract. It's basically 5 minus 3, and that is going to be 2. And so that is the expression in simplest form. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, the second part actually asks a different problem. Okay, who has more tadpoles after 9 minutes? So you're going to have to look at each of these expressions differently. So you had 7T plus 5 tadpoles. Okay, your friend had 8T minus 3 tadpoles. And the T is the number of minutes. So now they're telling you that T is 9. So now what we're looking at here is we're looking at this T, that's the number of minutes, and we're replacing that T with 9. So we're actually going to have to plug that in. So evaluate, that's one of the vocab things that we had. Plug in the number and do the math, basically. So 9 goes into T for each one of these. Okay, so based on that, let's rewrite this. So 7T, so 7 times T, so it's going to become 7 times 9 plus 5. 7 times 9, 63, plus 5, 68. So after 9 minutes, you would have 68 tadpoles. Okay, your friend, 8 times 9 minus 3, 72 minus 3. Oh, that's going to be 69. So your friend had, so who has more? Your friend has more. One more, to be exact. Okay, And so that's how you do a problem like that. There will be one like that on the Big Ideas Math, so refer back to this if necessary.